Hi, Courtney. This is Pramit from Digital Mafia Talkies. I have watched, consumed, and as a fan of folk horror movies, I like the film, and your performance in it was amazing. Um,
Thanks.
so my first question to you is that how were you approached for this role of Beth, and what was the process of getting into the skin of the character?
Yeah, I was initially approached, I think, the same way as many actors, especially during COVID, which is when this was casting with just a very small scene. Put yourself on tape, you send it off, and you hope for the best. The difference for this one for me is the second that I read the very limited amount of script that I had to work with. I was obsessed. I wanted it so badly. So I think something about that really translated in the audition because I wanted to be Beth. I wanted to really embody this character so badly. I think once I got the full script and realized the full scale of what she was going to go through, was maybe regretting how physical it was going to become. But other than that, it was definitely, quite a journey.
And yeah, so I was there. My next question is exactly that. Like, it is a very physically demanding role. Like you're running, falling, crawling,
Yeah.
and you're shooting in a forest, which is not a controlled environment. So, were there any shoot days? Like, do you have any anecdotes where it was really difficult for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you caught that because it was quite physically demanding. This isn't like you said, it's not a controlled environment. I mean, we quite literally were in the woods. Every piece of equipment had to be brought in, the entire crew, everyone, we're either hiking in or we're on, at the very best, like gator motorcycle thingies going in and out of the woods. So it was a very physically demanding role, not only for myself, but for our entire crew, having to just be out there in the elements. I mean, if it's raining, it's raining. We're still shooting. We're still going for it. Um, that said, I was very fortunate to work with an amazing stunts team. Our stunt coordinator, DJ Rostenberg, who's a really talented woman, really walked me through a lot of this, and let me do a lot of it myself. Obviously, there's, plenty of stunts that I was doubled for or had some assistance with. But I think any cases where I really felt strongly that I could do it, she was really open to letting me try and to showing me a safe way to do it.
And like my most scariest scene in the film was not even Wendigo related. It was a news scene. So was it
Oh.
as scary to shoot as it looked?
You know what? It was actually much safer than it looks, but I think from everyone's perspective, at least when we were shooting it, watching it on monitor, I think it does, even without any music or anything like that, it does look quite shocking and quite, I don't want to say gruesome, but it is a brutal scene to watch, and it goes on for about as long as you would think it would if it were actually happening. For me shooting that, no, it actually felt very safe. It was kind of fun. It's one of those things where you're like, "Ooh, I'm flying," and then you have to remind yourself that this is a very horrifying moment. And again, that's another scene that we were really lucky to have as amazing of a stunt team as we did, because I think otherwise that would have been a very unsafe one to attempt in the woods.
And like it is also a very emotionally taxing role because you're dealing with the character is dealing with cancer. So how did you kind of ensure that something as universal as that permeated through the story amongst all the Wendigo related chaos?
Right. I think there was a real sense of being able to handle this sensitively because, like you say, this is a universal theme. I think everyone has dealt with some level of loss, and I think there's very few people in this world who have not been touched by either chronic illness or cancer. In some ways, it's definitely something that's personal to me, and so approaching a character like this that has she's been sick for a while and she's gone through it and she's fought so hard to make it to the point that she is, and then to have to fight again against all these other elements is just something where you see her digging deep almost every chance that she gets. There's a sense of she could let go, she could stop, she could give up, and she's been there before. She's not given up before, and she's not going to give up now.
And I'm sure like everybody will have their own interpretations of the parallels between cancer and the Wendigo related stuff. So, but what was your interpretation of that particular theme? And like, did it kind of evolve from the time you first read the script till you did the movie?
I think we stayed pretty true to the script and pretty true to the source material, which it's woven throughout. I mean, I think there's so much of the elements of loss and of grief and of suffering and of fighting throughout that it all is stacked on top of each other. in ways that it's really hard to separate those two worlds in this script. You get a sense that, you know, Beth isn't the only one who has suffered in this case. Her husband, Jay, has suffered. Quinn has certainly suffered. And so it's these three people that are hurting desperately, sort of locked in a struggle together. I mean, you add into that a creature and the woods and, you know, gore and all of those things. It was always there from the start that these were going to be the elements woven throughout.
And you have done so many horror movies up till now. But are you a huge fan of horror, and do you have any recommendations for us?
You know what? I personally love horror films. I am such a baby, so I tend to be the one that is, you know, hiding behind my hands half the time. On set, I'm not scared at all. You're seeing the gags, you're seeing how it's done. I've watched, you know, on set somebody cut their tongue out of their mouth and, you know, break their foot in a horrific way. I've seen it all. On the day, it's the most fun thing in the world. When I'm watching it, I am an absolute baby hiding behind my hands. That said, I still absolutely love horror. I'm such a fan of the entire genre. I think there's such a sense of community to it too, which I think, you know, I've been fortunate to be exposed to. In terms of films that I would recommend, I loved Longlegs personally, so that's one that I would definitely recommend.
And like obviously, it must have been a fan moment for you to work with Devon. So, what were your off-screen conversations like? Was it horror movie related or like the shoot days?
You know what? We actually, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Devon's. I think because of the age that I am, the films that I know him from and the things that I was most excited to get to, you know, work with him opposite were from films like, you know, like Casper. I was the right age when that film came out. I was the exact right age when like Now and Then came out. So it was more like, you know, his turns as being like a teen heartthrob that I was thinking of, which of course I did not bring up to him because I think that would make him very uncomfortable. Yeah, obviously he is such a horror buff and he's been in the genre for so long. He's really just such a masterful actor. In terms of our conversations when we weren't shooting, we really kept separate. So we were trying to keep a sense of these two characters, like not necessarily being able to tell the other's motives. And I think that was something that really helped so that when we were together on set, there was a real sense of trying to suss the other one out and really trying to figure out how far it was going to go. He's really willing to take scenes further than they are on the page. And I think that's amazing. That was something that we decided early on that we were both open to doing.
And my final question to you is that like, what are some of the thoughts and opinions about the film's messages and themes that you want audiences to walk away with after watching Consume?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think what makes this film unique, instead of it just being, you know, two people going to the woods who have no idea what they're doing and they've, you know, found themselves in this horrifying circumstance. You're watching two people that are dealing with a really complex layer of grief and of loss of their former life. There's so many themes of sadness and of suffering and of loss within this film, and it's not just with our lead couple. We're seeing that with Devon's character as well. I think what I'd love for audiences to take away is that there's a real heart behind this film. It's not just a creature film. I think so often we hear that there's a monster in a film and we think that's going to be the only focus. And I think there's something very unique about this script and this final film that really touches on those deeper layers.
All right. Thank you for having me so much, Courtney. And I wish you the best for the film. And yeah, I hope your performance gets the love it deserves.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.